Good evening, boys and girls. Have you all been good? I'm sure you have. And if you haven't, don't tell anyone, and I shan't. Anyway, this one is a fairy story, and it goes like this. The other day, I stepped into one of my wardrobes, looking for a very particular cravat I knew I'd got in a filing cabinet towards the back, when a most peculiar thing happened. As I walked towards the rear of the wardrobe, instead of it getting darker, I saw light streaming through a door of many windows, and when I pushed it open, I found myself stepping out of a telephone box into a funny little village where I'd never been before. Surprised and confused by this strange turn of events, I asked a passing local where I was. "Frack here," he replied. "You probably won't have heard of it. It used to be called Little Stop It, but we changed the name to Frack here to attract the drillers. Here, you're not a property developer, are you? 'Cause if you are, we could really do with some high-density, affordable housing in Penny Down Meadow." I knew then I was in a very unusual place, and a long, long way from home. My reverie was interrupted by another villager walking past, leading her dog. Plodding behind her, it paused and, with a squat and a squeeze and an indifferent shrug, produced a sculpture, a work to rival Michelangelo or Henry Moore. Or at least that's what the owner must have thought, since she left it there, right in the middle of the pavement, so all the other villagers could admire it. Just as I was thinking, well, that's a bit off, a darting light appeared, first over my left shoulder, then over my right, hopping and skipping on the very molecules of the air until finally it coalesced into a single diaphanous entity, a shimmering cross between Keira Knightley and a dragonfly. "Hello," said the beautiful creature. "I'm Tinkerplop, the Poo Fairy." Then without another word, she scooped up the scatological sculpture in a dustpan of solid gold with a brush made of unicorn hair, and in an instant she was gone. In another instant she was back. "Where did you go?" I asked. "Later," she replied. "Later you shall know it all." Then she took my hand and we flew over to the village green, where she had some business to deal with, then to the football field, where she had a whole lot more, each time disappearing and then reappearing in a fraction of a second, her pan wiped clean with reindeer's tears, her brush fresh dipped in fairy Dettol. Then we did the pavement from outside the tabernacle, past the tavern and the moot hall, and up to the stagecoach shelter. Even moving at the speed of light, that lot took us about half an hour, but eventually all the sculptures had been tidied away. As Tinkerplop went off to fly with the last one, I caught her hand. "Now," I asked, "now will you show me where all this stuff magically disappears to?" "Come," she said, "for you have much to learn." And with that we shot up out of the village, over the fields, over the hill, until we came to a stop on a path between some trees. "Is this it?" I said. "You're just chucking it in the woods?" "Look," she said impatiently. "Look closely, and you will see." And as my eyes grew accustomed to the light, I saw that many of the trees had neatly knotted black plastic bags hanging from their lowest branches. Not just the trees either. These strange offerings hung from bushes, fences, even gateposts. "In your world," explained Tinkerplop, "people cut down a living tree, take it into their house, and hang sparkling baubles and coloured lights on it. In this world, people leave the living trees where they are, for which the tree spirits are very grateful, but then they hang these bags on them instead." "What's in them?" I asked. "Money? Sweets? Rose petals?" "Dog sculptures," she said. "More bloody dog sculptures. People follow their pooch, and when it does one, they scoop it up in a special bag they've brought with them, tie a lovely bow, and hang it on the nearest available hook. If they're so proud of them, I do wish they'd take them home and put them on the mantelpiece." "Do the tree spirits appreciate it?" I asked. "Does it encourage them to bring forth berries and nuts and sweet fruits in great plenty?"
No, grumbled a nearby oak. How would you like it if people kept hanging this stuff on you? Still, it's better than being killed and having tinsel hung on your corpse, I suppose.
And all the bushes, fences and gateposts nodded in agreement. Just then 2 odd-looking men came striding along the path. Both were about 4 feet high, wearing lederhosen and a straw-top hat, with a pannier slung from either hip, and holding a long pair of tongs. As they walked along, they plucked the bags with the tongs and dropped them into the panniers. "They're the Poo Rangers," said Tinkerplop, anticipating my question. "The Shire Park Authority imply them to pick it all up." That's what happens to pixies who've been naughty. So we followed the Poo Rangers deeper and deeper into the 100-hectare wood, listening to the song they sang as they marched along. I love to go a-wandering, gathering dogs or deer. I used to have the will to live, but now I'm not so sure. And so it was that we came at last to a broad clearing in the deepest, darkest part of the woods, in the middle of which stood a funny little cottage built entirely of andrex. Sheets of sheer butter-quilted velvet thatched the roof, whilst a stack of inner rolls formed the chimney. Quite suddenly the door creaked open, and a jolly little fellow with twinkling ears and long white eyebrows came out. "Hello!" he exclaimed, slapping 2 of his 3 thighs. "I see we have a visitor. I am the excrement elf. I take all these canine contributions and turn them into snowdrops and butterflies. Frankly, it's doing my backs in, both of them. Would you like to see how I do it?" My curiosity overcame my fear, and I followed his beckoning fingers. But even as I stepped through the door, I found myself not in an elven sitting room, but back in my own wardrobe, the very cravat I'd been looking for tied in a perfect bow around my knee. Had it all been a dream? What the hell do they put in those mothballs? And have they got any left at home base? I knew that I could never tell anyone about my strange adventure. They'd think I was mad, and that would never do. I went off for a walk to get some fresh air and clear my head of all that crazy, silly nonsense. But as I walked along the grass, along the pavement, and up into the woods, I saw I'd trodden in some dog sculpture, and as I wiped my shoe on a grassy knoll, a sudden realization came to me. Looking at all the evidence at my feet, there are clearly loads of people who believe in the Poo Fairy, the Rangers, and the excrement elf. So I can't be the only one who's seen them. And thus, reassured of my own sanity, I nipped into the moon in ribbons to tell all my friends my interesting tale.